Hello, I want to welcome everyone to our live webinar, Overcoming Unique IT Challenges in Education. Thank you for joining us today. It's going to be an exciting presentation. Before we get started, make sure everyone is comfortable with our web platform. If at any time you're having trouble seeing slides or having audio issues, try simply refreshing your browser. That should fix most issues. Please post your questions during the live session in our Q&A chat window, and we will be allocating 15 minutes at the end to answer these questions in real time. So be sure to stay on till the end to hear your questions answered live. This webinar is also being recorded, and a copy of the recording will be emailed to you within a couple of days. Additionally, we'll be having, including the slides for immediate download in the resources section for your convenience. Now, Deidre, let's get started. Go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Mitch. Welcome everyone again to our webinar, and thank you for joining us. The topic today again is overcoming the unique IT challenges in education. Today you will hear from Alexander Gates, Product Marketing Director here at Extreme Networks, Taylor Razane, ITC Systems Manager from EGO Schools in the United Kingdom, Scott Young, IT Project Manager from Pulaski Public Schools in Arkansas, and I'm Deidre Pearson, Senior Marketing Specialist from Extreme Networks. Here is our agenda for today's webinar. After hearing from me, Alexander will go over some challenges for education we are seeing in the industry. Then we will move on to our customer panel. Alexander will then show us more about cloud-driven networking and give us a live demo of Extreme Cloud IQ. We will end with some Q&A. So feel free to post your questions like Mitch said at any time in the chat window, but we will address them at the very end. Just a quick word about Extreme Networks and what we do. Extreme Networks delivers end-to-end cloud-driven flexible networking solutions, public, private, or on-prem, and top-rated services and support to advance our customers' digital transformation efforts and deliver progress like never before. Our product line covers the full range of network products from data center switches to wired edge, Wi-Fi access points, and network management and analytics. We are also, once again, the official Wi-Fi provider of the NFL and official Wi-Fi analytics provider of the Super Bowl. At Extreme Networks, education computing is a major aspect of what we do. Our education customers are located around the world. As you can see on the map, today over 17,000 schools and 4,500 campuses worldwide depend on network hardware and software from Extreme Networks. We power their classrooms, laboratories, residential halls, stadiums, arenas, and in a growing way, their esports. Here is the latest Gartner Magic Quadrant report. As you can see, both customers and the industry recognize our approach as a leader and is the right one for them. We are recognized as an industry leader not only in our technology and vision, but also in our customer support. We surveyed over 1,000 education IT professionals, and with 1,051 respondents, this is what we found. 94% of education organizations are hosting at least one network solution in the cloud. 17 manage their IT network in the cloud, and 40% of education institutions have plans to move their IT network to the cloud in 1 to 5 years. If you wish to see the full results of our survey, it is on our blog and will be in the downloadable resources. Now I will pass it over to Alexander Gates.
Thanks, Deidre, and thanks everyone for attending today. So I just wanted to start really quickly with some updates on the trends that we've been seeing in networking in general, and then also related to growth in data and the processing of that data by the infrastructure networks that we support. So some of the statistics that you see on the screen here, throwing out, we're predicting that there's going to be 75 billion devices by 2025. That's 10 times the number of people on Earth. You can also see 463 exabytes of data generated per day. That's currently, and that's going to be increasing exponentially in the coming years as well. You can see right now 5.1 billion mobile users, again, currently in the world. But the problem is that less than half of IT teams will get more headcount, and what kind of we've learned from the survey we did that Deidre just mentioned, and also other outreach to our customers. And then you can also see, even a lot of times, CIO's budget, 60% of their budget is sometimes outside of technology. So we're kind of losing control over what's happening with network infrastructure and how we're able to gain back control of what's happening. So that's kind of the goal of the next few slides, is to go through some of the issues, and then we'll have some of our actual customers talk you through issues and how they solved them. And then from an infrastructure and networking perspective, I'll go through some things on how you can prepare for the onslaught of data and devices and everything else that's coming at you from a network administrator perspective. So it used to be just about the users that were trying to get something done on campus or in the classroom. And we would, ask questions like, how many users or how many students do you have on campus? And we would provision networks from there. But in the last few years, especially, the number of devices has increased exponentially. And the average right now is about 4 devices per student on campus. That typically increases with higher education institutions because you have things like IoT devices in dorm rooms. So that's something that we're also contending with. So not only are we asking how many students and faculty and staff do you need to support, but what's the predicted number of devices that we need to create this infrastructure for as well. IoT type devices do have some other issues, I guess we can say, on the back end, and I'll talk to that in the security section of this webinar on how to further secure those devices and make sure you're providing optimal connectivity for all types of devices, whether they're user operated or more machine-to-machine based communication as well. And then on top of the users and the devices, we have this third level of applications. So there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of applications out there that people are using on campus or in classrooms, whether it's educational and they're using it to learn something, or it's people that are streaming videos on YouTube or trying to get on Facebook to connect with others socially. There's a vast array of applications, and they all have different bandwidth demands as well. So how can we take back control of the network and make sure we're prioritizing things that are focused on education? I'll get into that on the visibility and control side coming up. And then we found another stat, and again, you can take that with a grain of salt if you'd like, that 96% of students say that reliable Wi-Fi is important to their success as a student. So, whether, again, it's being used for educational opportunities or just, again, to stream cat videos that, you really don't know, but they are saying that Wi-Fi is important to their success, and they do utilize that to actually learn in the classroom. So we as networking vendors are kind of asking the question, how can we change the educational experience on campus? And this is where I want to hand off to one of our customers here. I believe, Daryl, you're up first. I'll hand over to you to talk through some of your issues and the solutions you've been able to find with regards to networking.
Yep, thank you. My name is Daryl Rizet. I'm the IT manager of a secondary school in the United Kingdom. We're located in a small town called Alton, which is based in Hampshire in the south of the United Kingdom. We've got 960 students, so we're quite a small school, probably in relation to you guys. We've got 90 members of staff, and we currently have one access point in every classroom in the school, with a total of just 52 wireless access points, and that includes wireless points for outdoor use as well. So we're quite a small school. We're on Twitter at Eggers. As you can see, we're right at the bottom of the United Kingdom, just to the southwest of London. We're quite a small rural school out in the English countryside. So we haven't got a really strong internet connection to work with, but we've had the Extreme solution in for 6 years now, with absolutely no issues. When I started at the school, we had another vendor, wireless network, and I had to decide whether to continue with that vendor and expand for things like bring your own device, or whether to switch to a new vendor. I had used what was ErrorHive at the time, is now Extreme, in my old school, and it brought some really, really good features along. So I wanted to bring it to my new school. One of the goals that my new school had was that they wanted to wirelessly stream content from an iPad to the classroom board, because the Internet of Things and lots of devices, you know, and lots of apps they wanted to share on the classroom board. So that was one of the things. We wanted to introduce bring your own device, and we approached this that a lot of students already have devices at home and they just want to bring them in and use them in education, but obviously in a safe way. We wanted to expand to outdoor Wi-Fi, so you can see a wooden area here that we've got full Wi-Fi coverage, so in the summer months they can go outdoors, take their laptops out and learn outdoors. And for me, I wanted to increase reliability of the network and enable remote management, because one of the things that the previous wireless system had was a wireless controller with no access outside. So based on those bits and pieces, I've got 3 solutions that I want to talk to you about, and one of them actually led me to find Extreme Networks, and that is Bonjour Services for Apple devices. So we were talking about the teacher wanting to use an iPad or a Apple device and wirelessly project it to the classroom board, and I started to look at how we might achieve that, and actually the Extreme system came up. So I ended up buying the Extreme wireless access points, and we took we use something called Bonjour Services. So what that is I call it a hidden gem. A lot of people don't actually use it, but it's actually really useful for education. So when I started at the school, there was a demand for showing apps, like I said, from iPads to classroom boards. Currently, the school were using long VGA cables and adapters, and showing, you know, students that they were talking to at the time their screen, which obviously is not a great solution. It posed health and safety risks with trailing cables, and it meant the teacher was tied to the front of the classroom, which they try and discourage quite a lot in the United Kingdom. They try and say that you should not just leave the class from the front. So I knew from my previous job that we could achieve this wirelessly with Extreme networks, with a technology called Bonjour Gateway, which is actually included in all the access points on Extreme Cloud. Ordinarily, AirPlay and AirPrint to work, an iPad or an iPhone and the actual receiver, for example, a PC or an Apple TV, would need to be on the same network so that they can see each other. And this is not possible. On a lot of corporate networks in schools, we've got multiple VLANs, lots of different networks. So you might have the iPad on one network and the receiver on another, and of course this won't ordinarily work. But what Bonjour Gateway allows you to do is it allows you to broadcast those services across multiple VLANs, meaning that you can connect the iPad to one wireless network, and the receiver, for example, Apple TV, you could hardwire into another network and they can still see each other. We use something called Air Server on the teacher PCs, which allows multiple devices to wirelessly stream content at the same time, and in turn is displayed on the classroom display. It's a really cheap piece of software to use, and it's really easily configured in Extreme Cloud with just a few policies. The next one, introduction of bring your own device. The head teacher wanted to embrace technology already owned by the students at home and its use in school, like I said. The first challenge was obviously to increase network capacity, so we had to run new fiber cables, new cabling, new firewalls and web filtering, so we did all of that. And then what we did is we went for one wireless access point per classroom, just to ensure that we had enough capability. and then we expanded to outdoor areas, such as those explained already, as the budget allowed. And that's the great thing about extreme networks, is you can buy the wireless access points as you expand. So you don't have to think about it up front as you develop something new. You can just buy the wireless access point, plug it in, it looks to the cloud and self-configures on the Extreme Cloud for you. We use a feature called ppsk for authentication of bring your own device, which means that you can use a unique wireless key for every user and restrict the use of the key. So this provides prevents users from bringing in multiple devices and sharing keys with others who should not have access to your system. It also significantly improves security of the network. So gone are the days of a student coming up to you and saying, I know the password. You can have a different password for every user on your network. Once a user has authenticated using ppsk, we can see the username against the device in Extreme Cloud, and in turn this can be entered into our web filtering system to get a full audit of the web history. And lastly, as I said before, the current wireless solution required the use of a wireless controller, which was situated in the server room, and we had a leak in the roof of that server room, and it stopped the controller from working, and we had to wait 3 months. We had to wait 3 months for a replacement controller, but as you can imagine, that was just complete and utter carnage. With Extreme Cloud, it doesn't rely on a controller, so you haven't got a single point of failure. Each access point individually works independently, and there's no single point of failure anymore, so you won't lose your whole wireless network. With Extreme Cloud, it's also cloud-based management, so we find it really easy to configure new and existing wireless access points, whether we're on-site or at home. Having a cloud-based management system, it allows us to make any changes from home or on the go. I can't tell you how many times I've had a phone call out of hours to say, I have 100 guests in school and they need Wi-Fi, sorry, I forgot to ask. So it takes me literally 5 minutes from home with Extreme Cloud. I can monitor the system and I can actually watch clients connect up as they come on. So it just gives me peace of mind that everything is working. And if I want, I can even ask Alexa to do it for me and report. Extreme Wireless, for me, has been the most reliable system that I've had in 5+ years of using it. I haven't had a single issue. It's one of those systems where if you need to leave it alone and for it to just work, it does. But if you want to play with its capabilities, they're literally endless. Future plans for us are just a rollout program to replace end-of-life access points, because we've had it for over 5 years now, so we'll be replacing some of those. We're rolling out wireless coverage as new developments go across the school, because we're expanding quite rapidly, and we'll look at mobile management solutions as well to manage those devices on the network. And that's it from me. I hope that's been useful, and I'll pass over to Scott Young.
Good afternoon. Hope everyone is doing well today. My name is Scott Young. I'm the IT project manager for the Pulaski County Special School District. We are located in Little Rock, Arkansas. Kind of a district overview of kind of what we've got going on. We've got 25 schools, 7 admin sites, 12,000 students, 2,200 employees, 13,000 Chromebooks, 4,000 iPads, and 1,650 access points. So to say that we've got our hands full would be an understatement. I'll go on to some of our challenges. So we started down this road roughly late 2013, early 2014. The testing department came to us and basically said, you know, hey, we're going to go to these online testing, and so we need to figure out a roadmap and get a timeline for what it looks like to test all of our students. And so that's really what kind of took off for us as far as the wireless infrastructure. At that point in time, we had several different wireless vendors, and we had just tried the Arrowhive. And that seemed to work pretty flawlessly, no issues, everything was working great. And so for us, we started that in early 2014, and so we began to go to all of our different sites, and we had to recable everything. And much like Daryl said, we do one access point for every single classroom. If it's a larger classroom, it's going to be a collaborative type lab. We might put two in there. Generally speaking, we kind of view it from a standpoint of we want one access point for every 30 devices. So we've been super successful at that. It took us roughly about 1.5 to 2 years to go through all of our schools and recable all of those and do the access points. While we were in those buildings, you know, we had basketball gyms, or we had indoor practice facilities for football or for band, and so we went ahead and outfitted those areas, cafeterias, you know, all those different areas where you can have a whole lot of students congregate at one time. And so we would go in there and we would just we would use the Hive Manager, and we would use the heat map for that to kind of just determine and spread out and make sure that we had enough coverage throughout all those different areas. After doing all of that, our testing has been off the charts successful. One of our larger schools was able to test roughly 1,100 students at one time throughout that building, and that was huge for us. Prior to that, we were working basically in a classroom where most classrooms had 4 student devices, 1 teacher device in our elementary schools, and in our high schools they usually had 1 computer per classroom, and then we had multiple labs that would hold roughly 30 machines. And so we started looking at all that, and that testing, that was the driving force to our one-to-one student device program. We were bogged down with all the desktop computers. They were getting older. We were at a point where those things needed to be replaced, and so we started looking at that pricing, and it was crazy, off the charts. And we said, you know what, it's time for us to do a one-to-one program and to provide every student a device. And so that wireless MAN, it was extremely important to us because it had to be rock solid, because when you start looking at all the different classrooms and you start looking at all the different devices, and you were trying to put that stress on your network, and you were trying to have all the students be able to utilize their devices and to be able to test and to be able to run all their educational programs. We were very lucky to have the Extreme network. Those access points have been rock solid for us. So if you'll see there on our slide, our one-to-one program, our Chromebooks are assigned to all of our teachers and grades 3 through 12 students. iPads we use in our kindergarten, first and second grade classrooms, and those teachers as well. We started this program roughly in the spring of 2014, and for all of our teachers, and then in August of 2014, we rolled out to all of our students. We started off by doing a pilot program with 4 schools, just kind of get our feet wet and make sure we were going to be able to do what we needed to do, and that went off without a hitch. We had no problems. And so after that first year, we went ahead and added all of our schools to it. And so in August of 2015, we successfully rolled out to all of our schools, and all of our students had devices. And we never had a hiccup with the wireless. It's just worked flawlessly from day one. So a little bit about our infrastructure. Like I said earlier, we have about 1,650 devices across all of our buildings. We have been on-premise for 95% of that time. We are actually just now going to the Cloud IQ. That's been a process for us with that many devices. We just do a refresh yearly on those devices. So we try to refresh our devices every 5 years. And so we started that process a couple of years ago and just started buying those cloud licenses for all of our devices. And we had finally, as of about 2 months ago, gotten to a point where all of our devices are now in the cloud. And so we're going through that. We're going through that process right now. So far, that process has worked out pretty well. We've had a few hiccups, but nothing major, and we've got a great Extreme team that's willing to help us out and answer all of our questions so that we make it through this. And also, like Daryl was saying, we also use the Bonjour Gateway for, as you can imagine, lots of VLANs, lots of devices, the printing, and being able to cast to a TV screen, things like that. We also use the ppsk so that if we have a student leave or if we have a device that has some kind of issues, we can shut down their internet access without having to shut down everyone, by each person having their own individual key for that. And our current device that we've got throughout our buildings is the AP250, and we are starting to look at moving to the 410C in the coming months. And so basically we've filed for E-rate this year, and that's going to be our new device of choice, and we will start this 5-year refresh all over again. And basically each year as those devices roll off, we go ahead and try to replace them as needed. And that is all I've got. I hope I've answered and given you some good information.
Yes, thank you so much. It's always nice to hear from customers that are actually using this in the real world and talking about how they've overcome some solutions on their campus. So I'm going to shift gears here and talk about how to prepare for some of the issues that were brought up today. This is going to be in a little more generic terms. So if you're a customer of Extreme, that's great, but a lot of these tips and practices can be applied across all different networking vendors. And then I'll dive into Extreme Cloud IQ a bit towards the end to make sure, and we also will leave room for question and answers as well. I've seen some coming in throughout the webinar already. So on the side of preparing, I want to first talk about capacity and efficiency. So over the past 21 years or so of wireless existence, everyone's been focused on increasing the speed of networks, increasing the capacity, the bandwidth, and making sure that devices have a fast connection to the internet. But the problem is we can only add so many lanes. And this example on the slide here is that we've been adding lanes to a highway and hoping people can go faster throughout these lanes. But the issue with modern day networks is that if someone runs into an issue or they're hogging the airspace, kind of turns into what's on the right-hand side of the screen, and it's a traffic backup. And that's just inherent with wireless because one person can interact with a radio and a wireless access point at one time. And if it's not working, everyone else has to wait their turn in order to access the network. So back in 2018, 802.11ax was kind of introduced into the wireless world. And now that we're in 2020, it's definitely more mature. There are a lot more vendors offering a wide portfolio of 802.11ax access points. And the goal of 802.11ax was to transition the conversation around wireless from how fast can I go to how efficient can I make the connection. So if you saw the animation on the screen right there, it changed from, talking about 10 gigabit per second speeds, which isn't, you can't actualize in the real world. And now we're kind of talking about high efficiency and how can we make wireless operation and connections more efficient. So I think the best way to talk about this with 802.11ax is going over a couple of the high-level features. The actual specification of 802.11ax is about 700 pages, and we've created this poster that you can see on the screen. I know the writing is very small. I just wanted to plug this. It's available for download on the Extreme website. It is not Extreme specific. It's talking about 802.11ax and the 7 most important features that are being, pulled out and promoted in the standard. So you can see things like OBSS, 256 to 1024 QAM, longer OFDM symbols, target wake time. That's really great. It helps improve battery life in mobile devices. But the most important feature on this slide, on this poster, is OFDMA, orthogonal frequency division multiple access. So I wanted to spend a few minutes here before we jump into more visibility and control type conversations. So with wireless today, it utilizes something called OFDM, and it means that, over a period of time, as I mentioned earlier, only one client can communicate with an access point at any given time. And we know with 30 students in a classroom or on a higher education campus, sometimes hundreds of people in a lecture hall, that can lead to some contention. So OFDMA is taking the same channel width that we've always been working with, and it's breaking it up into subcarriers and allowing us to serve multiple clients at one time. So in this example on the screen, you can see I can talk to 2 clients at a time, and then maybe 4 clients, back to 1 if they have a really large amount of data that they're trying to send, and then 2 clients, 1 client, 3 clients, whatever it might be. On paper, you can talk to between 1 and 72 people at a time with OFDMA, the technology. Real world, we're probably talking between 1 and 12 devices at a time that can access a radio and utilize it at the same time. So you can see, I'm going to do a quick animation on the slide. Got to be paying close attention there. The access point can now communicate with multiple devices, whether it be a tablet, a smartphone, an IoT device, a laptop, or even other mesh connection with other infrastructure devices, but it can communicate simultaneously. So that's the biggest shift or change in wireless technology in the last 21 years, and it's here. So make sure if you do have an aging network, you have 802.11n or 802.11ac access points, now is probably the time to start looking towards 802.11ax if you haven't already. So that's kind of on the infrastructure side. Very quick plug for the Wi-Fi 6 portfolio at Extreme. I did not mention it earlier, but Wi-Fi 6 and 802.11ax, they're the same thing, just different names by different governing bodies in the wireless world. So we do have a portfolio of access points, and reach out to an Extreme sales rep if you do have any needs to make a purchase. So that was kind of on the capacity side, efficiency. There's another way that you can prepare, and that revolves around increasing visibility and control. So I mentioned earlier that applications are kind of overtaking networks today, and it really depends on what students want to utilize and what they're looking to access. So there's a couple tools that we've built into our product line. There might be similar ones with other vendors that allows you to detect exactly what's happening on the network and then make decisions based on what you see. So here in the client monitoring tool that I have pulled up on the screen, this is something that allows you to do automatic troubleshooting and diagnosis to aid clients that are having connectivity issues. So this automatically detects, I think we're up to 37 issues right now, can range from anything like the client's entering the wrong password and so they're not able to authenticate to the network, up to more technical things like radius or DHCP issues. And this allows you to detect those issues. It will have a suggested remedy. And so it can kind of take the guesswork out of troubleshooting and alleviate some of your help desk issues. So client monitoring, again, it gives you more visibility into what's happening and then able to solve problems more effectively as well. Another tool we have is, make sure this animation is moving forward, Client 360. This is a great way to have full visibility onto what individual clients are accessing on the network. So you can click on a particular client, you get a breakdown of who that client is, where they're located, what SSID they're connected to, what applications they're running throughout a period of time. You can do up to 30 days of data retention right now. That's going to be increasing shortly. You can also look at things like what is their RSSI or signal to noise ratio, even compared to people near them. You can also watch their roaming history as they move throughout the facility. So a really great way to quickly assess what's happening with an individual client. If, for example, they come in and say, my device isn't working, you can go in and get a little bit more information quickly, and it's a way that you can easily digest and compare their experience to others. So that one's Client 360. We also have, let me move forward, Network 360 is taking Client 360 and applying it to your network as a whole. So this allows you to look at all devices across an individual school campus or higher education campus. You can create filters to look at individual sites or locations, or you can look at it in a more broad or global perspective. And this is going to show me things like what are all my clients doing in terms of application connectivity or capabilities. There's also things like Wi-Fi health, services health, security of all the different devices and users. So Network 360 is another one of those features that allows you to see what's going on the network. And then based on what you see, you can make decisions to maybe tweak configurations or set up a certain application rule to block or rate limit an application that seems to be bogging your network down. So that one's Network 360. One component of Network 360 is network health scores. You can see those kind of across the top of the slide. That gives you a health score for 7 different categories of your network. And we make it pretty basic. Green is good. Orange, you're kind of getting in the middle. Red, you might want to make a change. You can click onto those health scores, and it shows you some of the back-end algorithms and calculations that helped compute that score. So if, for example, in this one, the client score is 76, I could click onto that score and see why I'm getting a score of 76, and if there's anything that I can change to maybe improve that performance. So this is great. You know, if you're a network administrator, you walk into your school or campus in the morning, you can quickly log in, everything's green. You can go get a cup of coffee and come back. If you log in and everything's red, maybe you need to dive in and take some more time to make sure that you're optimizing the connectivity on your campus. There's lots of other features incorporated into the tool, Extreme Cloud IQ. That's a very brief overview of what some of those tools that can help increase your visibility and then again, take back control of your network as a result. The last category I want to cover before we get into questions is on the security side. So I mentioned earlier about connected users, but in kind of the world of intelligence and all the data and ML and AI that we're in today, those users have particular roles in your organization. So in this one, for example, we have a teacher, a student, a teacher's aide set up. We just want to make sure that you're enabling certain role-based access depending on who someone is or what type of device they're joining the network with. So you can see here, again, these are very generic examples, but maybe a teacher, you're going to give them high bandwidth allocation, 24-hour access, whereas a student, maybe you're going to give them access during office hours or school hours, but you're going to limit some of the apps that they can use during the school day. A teacher's aide kind of sits in the middle. You're going to give them medium bandwidth, some extended working hours, but they only have access in office areas. So there's a lot of different capabilities you can do with modern day network management systems to set up role-based access control. Sometimes it's called user profiles or segmentation under the SSID level, but make sure you are talking with your networking vendor and taking advantage of some of these feature sets to make sure that you are, again, taking full advantage of what's offered, but also making sure you have control over what everyone is doing on your network. So some of the things that can aid with segmentation or connectivity, both Daryl and Scott mentioned ppsk. So ppsk is something that is proprietary to Extreme. You can talk to your vendor if you're not with Extreme, if they have something similar. But this is a really great feature that kind of bridges the gap between traditional PSK and 802.1x. So with ppsk, you're able to get a unique password for each student, or I guess grouping, however you see fit, that they use to log on to the network. You don't need certificates or radius servers in order to enact this. They can be time-based credentials, they can be location-based. You can distribute them in a few different ways. You can send an email saying this is your password, please use it to onboard your devices. You can text it to them, you can print out lists. We have self-service kiosk applications that you can use. You can pre-provision devices with these ppsk's. So a lot of different ways that you can utilize them. But again, as I said on the slide and what it's showing here, it can be location-based, it can be time-based, and it can even be device-based. So a student gets a ppsk and it's good for 3 devices. Once they've logged in on 3 devices, they're not able to onboard anything else to the network and they're blocked out. You can also have it self-expire at the end of the year, or if you're using it more for a guest type access functionality, you can have them expire every 7 days, every 24 hours. It's totally up to you how you configure them and how you control them. You can also use it for BYOD type applications and even better IoT devices. A lot of times IoT devices aren't compatible with certificates in 802.1x. This allows you to provide a unique and secure credential for an IoT device, and that way you're able to track it individually and create restrictions for that IoT device as well. So we've all heard the hacks and security vulnerabilities of certain IoT devices in the media. This is a really great way to lock down those devices and make sure you have full control over what they're doing on your network. The last thing here is private client groups. This is something that usually applies more to a higher education opportunity, but this is another feature set that we've enabled through our product lines. And private client groups are a way to create personal or room area networks. This would mostly apply to a dorm type situation where you don't need to create different SSIDs or different VLANs for each student grouping or room where they have their own personal devices that they want access to, things like gaming systems or printers or a wireless camera, but they're able to connect to the network generically as well. So you can see through the animation I just moved through, and the individual student is tied to a personal area network enabled through ppsk's, and they're able to access their own private devices, but then also reach other broad applications and network connectivity as well. So you can see as someone would move through a dorm room, they would still have connectivity back to their room, but they're able to get generic Wi-Fi access from every access point throughout the dorm as well. So you can see kind of the plugs of what the main feature sets are atop the cross: PCG performance, seamless connectivity, ppsk experience. The main benefit of this is micro-segmentation without having to do mass configuration and VLAN assignments and things on the back end. So again, if anyone has more specific questions about this, we could take those offline. Just wanted to introduce the concept here on the webinar today. And some bad news for today. ON24 is not allowing us to screen share during this webinar. I think they're probably having a lot more users than normal because of the quarantining and everyone working from home. So I'm not going to be able to do a live demo today. I will record a demo after this, and we'll make sure to send it out with the on-demand version of this webinar. So again, we apologize we're not able to do a live demo, but we'll make sure we give you an overview of Extreme Cloud IQ after the fact. All right, I will take a breath. Deidre, I'll hand it to you for these slides, and then we'll dive into some of the Q&A.
Okay, great. Thanks, Alexandra. That was awesome. So here are our 2 upcoming user conferences Obviously, we are staying on top of the COVID-19 situation relative to the Nashville conference, so stay tuned for any updates. But the Berlin, Germany conference in September is still looking pretty good. And then as well, we're celebrating network innovators around the globe who use extreme technology and solutions to deliver amazing results for their businesses and their customers. So we decided to do XFactor Awards for this year. So nominations are officially open for the XFactor Connect 2020 Customer Awards. The winners will be announced in mid-April and recognized at our user conferences in 2020. So for more information on how you can, if you want to be nominated or you think someone else should be nominated, visit our Extreme Connect website. And that will have all of your questions answered. So now we will be going into our Q&A portion of the webinar, and I'll pass it over to Mitch.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And we do have a few questions that have come in. So let's go straight into the Q&A portion of today's webinar. The first question is, do you have to pay for ppsk as a separate license?
I'll take that one. So ppsk is integrated into Extreme Cloud IQ. So with a single cloud license, you get all of those feature sets that I mentioned. So it's something that's just incorporated, and it's not billed per device or per key or anything like that.
Perfect. And we do have another one here as well. How do I register for a cloud account?
Yeah, so I didn't get to show the demo, but if you go to extremecloudiq.com, it will take you to a page, and you can see you can either log in to an account or you can register for an account. It'll be showing up on the right-hand side, so you can register that way. So again, it's extremecloudiq.com, and it's just the letters iq.com, and you'd be able to register for an account there.
Perfect. And then there's another one here. Can you assign a ppsk to a guest via a guest portal instead of communicating it to the client manually?
Yes, so that is one of the options. We do have a kiosk application that we offer. Typically, a customer would use like an iPad, and they would have it at a front desk or in the office. Someone walks in, they fill out information. You can choose if it's just their name or you want their email address, cell phone number. Those are all customizable. And once they've entered their information, it creates a ppsk for them. They can enter it manually, or they could even scan a barcode on the iPad, and then it will self-register their device. So there is the ability to have kind of a standalone guest portal that people can access. You can also do it just via basic captive web portal, where when someone tries to connect, it appears on their own screen. So there's a lot of different ways that you can utilize the ppsk tool.
Perfect. And then we have why iPads for K through 2 and Chrome for 3 through 12. I think this one was directed to our presenters.
Yes, I will take this one. This is Scott. So when we did our initial test, we did actually iPads for everyone in those 4 schools that I was talking about. And so what we learned that year was that the kindergarten through the second graders, they really needed that. They needed that tactile touch. And so this was prior to any type of touchscreen Chromebooks. And so the following year, when we started to give devices to all of our other schools, we started looking at it, and those folks, a lot of our kids, they really needed the keyboard and they needed the screen, and obviously the Chromebooks are a whole lot more affordable. And so we had a stock of iPads that we kept for the K-2 students, and then the 3-12 got new Chromebooks. But this next fall, we're actually going to change that up a little bit. We've not made a decision on our kindergarten students yet, but our first and second graders are actually going to be moving to Chromebooks, because what we've seen is that with a lot of the testing, they're already starting to use those keyboards, and so we're just trying to transition them over to that. And so we're actually going to be moving most of our children over to Chromebooks. Like I said, kindergartners we haven't fully decided on yet, but if you ask me today, I would say we're probably going to stay with iPads for those kindergarten students.
Excellent. And we do have another one. I think this one's also for our presenters. What model access point, what kind, and how many data runs to the access point?
Absolutely. So all of our access points right now are AP250s, and in, I would say, probably 90% of our schools, we actually have 2 cables pulled to each access point. There are a few schools that we did not hit that on the front end, but we will be pulling an additional cable as we refresh our access points.
Excellent. And then we have another one on the line. Does ppsk support WPA3?
So good question. So WPA3 actually disallows PSK in general because it's not secure enough. So ppsk won't work directly with WPA3. We do have another patented technology called private SAE, simultaneous authentication of equals, which is what replaced PSK in WPA3. Sorry, lots of acronyms thrown around. So short answer is ppsk does not support it, but once we release the private SAE feature, it will support WPA3. So stay tuned for announcements about that.
Perfect. And that is all the questions that we have on the line for today. So that was an extremely informative presentation. Unfortunately, we do have to wrap up today's workshop. I want to thank you all again for joining today's presentation. As a reminder, this webinar was recorded and we'll be emailing you a copy of the recording within the next 48 hours. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great day.